It's a mechanical hack. You don't need to think about it. You don't need to visualize it. You just need to do some slow diaphragmatic breathing, around 6 breaths a minute. 4 breaths in, 6 breaths out. I guarantee you that will activate your vagal nerve. And I could tell you, I could measure it as well. I could measure it and give you some data that would show you how simple and effective that is as a tool.
If your nervous system feels stuck in permanent on mode where you're tired but wired and your sleep is unreliable and every little stressor seems to be tipping you over the edge no matter how much you rest or meditate, this interview is for you. We are going to talk about so many things, like why stress isn't actually always the enemy and what's actually happening with your vagus nerve in conditions like ME/CFS and long COVID, how simple tools can start to shift things, and where the next generation of neurotechnology might fit into your recovery toolkit. If you're looking for practical, science backed ways to regulate your nervous system and support your brain retraining work, this conversation is for you. If you're new here, I'm Raelan Agle, and this channel is all about helping you retrain a hypersensitive threat system. We explore the lived stories and cutting edge science behind nervous system regulation and brain rewiring so you can understand your symptoms differently, calm an overprotective brain, and get your life back. Today, I am honored to welcome Jane Ollis, joining us from London, England. Jane is a medical biochemist and environmental scientist turned founder and CEO of SONA, a neurotechnology company focused on AI personalized vagus nerve stimulation for stress, sleep, and recovery. She's an ex NASA intern, an Oxford Business Fellow, and a respected chair and advisor in healthcare. She is someone who lives at the intersection of hard science, systems thinking, and deep compassion for people navigating chronic stress and chronic symptoms. In this interview, we will explore why stress is actually a superpower and exactly when it turns from helpful to harmful. We'll break down the real role of the vagus nerve in ME/CFS and long COVID and other chronic symptom conditions. We'll look at what it means when that parasympathetic brake is underpowered and the everyday practices that can strengthen it. If you, like many people, don't fully understand the vagus nerve or how strengthening it can potentially speed your recovery, you're going to want to stay right to the end. So please join me in welcoming Jane Ollis to the Raelan Agle podcast. And before we dive in, a quick reminder that subscribing to this channel is super helpful and appreciated. If you have already subscribed, thank you. If you haven't yet, I ask you to consider because as you've seen, the bigger the channel gets, the bigger the guests get. And it also tells the algorithm that you want to know when I put a new video out so you can see if it's something helpful for you. So thank you for tapping that subscribe button and enjoy this episode. Jane, so wonderful to have you here with us today. Thanks for doing this.
Absolute pleasure. Delighted to be on.
You have such a wealth of expertise that our listeners and viewers are going to be so interested in hearing about and learning from. And I'm just curious what brought you into this line of work and what got you interested in this? Like what's your background leading up to this?
So my background is I'm a medical biochemist by training, but spent a lot of my career in more sort of management chief exec roles, and then made a really deliberate decision. Actually, when I turned 50, and it wasn't a midlife crisis, it was just like my kids were a bit older. I felt like I'd suffered a lot from stress in raising a family during work, and I got super curious about why does stress affect the brain so much. Why does it then result in sort of chronic conditions and all sorts of problems? And how could we fix it? How could we improve the way the nervous system is regulated and how, therefore, our brain responds better to stress and we have more headroom and better nervous system health? And that just felt like a problem that was worth investing time, energy into trying to solve in a really, really neat way that would be helpful to people living with chronic conditions.
Oh my goodness, I am on the edge of my seat already. I'm sure a lot of people are. I'm so excited to hear about I'm not even sure where to start. You spent years now studying stress, correct?
Definitely the last 5 years of my life has
Last
been
5 years.
100% dedicated to the role of the nervous system as it affects the brain and how it affects brain health, particularly stress, but also chronic conditions as well.
And what are some of the biggest things that you've learned in that time?
The biggest things that I've learned is that stress is a real superpower. Stress gets such a bad name. We say we mustn't have stress, mustn't have stress, but actually,
Yeah.
stress for humanity is a real superpower. It helps us to perform at our best and to be creative, innovative, energized, problem solving. But stress becomes a problem when we exposed to it too often, and that chronic stress then impacts the way that the brain performs. So I think that's been one of my biggest moments is seeing, where does stress become good or bad? When does it make you sick? When does it keep you healthy? And how can we decode stress so that you know what is your stress levels are and how to build resilience? So that for me has just been a fascinating area of the role of stress in the brain.
And what have you uncovered about the connection between stress and physical symptoms that people experience?
They're all connected. So the brain body connection is absolutely real. And the vagus nerve, which is our longest nerve in our body, and it connects our brain through to all of our organs, is like this super highway, this super communication channel that is constantly searching around in the body for the state of play and communicating to the brain, what's going on around in the body. And this brain body connection of the vagus nerve I think is absolutely fascinating, and the role of the vagus nerve in keeping these systems working properly. But also, when you're having autoimmune conditions like long COVID or ME or chronic fatigue, the role of the vagus nerve becomes it doesn't work as well, and that seems to have an underpinning role around why some of these conditions can be quite tricky to navigate out of.
So, when you say the vagus nerve isn't working as well, what do you mean by that?
It seems to be dampened down. So the vagus nerve
Wow.
makes up 80% of your parasympathetic nervous system. So that's your counter
Wow.
to your sympathetic nervous system, which is your sort of stress-driven flight and fright. And you need these two systems working well to have a healthy nervous system. And it appears that in some of these autoimmune functions, that the parasympathetic, the vagus nerve break is much, much
Mhm.
weaker, much weaker. And so that just makes managing these conditions really, really tricky. And you get all sorts of other secondary effects. And I know this is an area of your sort of expertise and personal journey as well. So the vagus nerve is just a key player in all of this.
I feel like it's not getting the attention that it deserves because we talk a lot about the sympathetic nervous system, that chronic fight or flight, that threat physiology. We're stuck in, high alert all of the time, but very rarely talk about what's happening with the parasympathetic nervous system, it being an underdrive as opposed, it sounds like, in
Exactly.
comparison. Yeah.
Exactly right. You need these two systems to be in healthy balance all the time. And one of the ways you can do that is strengthen the vagus nerve, strengthen
Mm.
its voice in these two systems, so that it's an equal player.
So I think I have a limited understanding. I think that all of us humans are still trying to fully put this together, but we have pieces of it of why our sympathetic nervous system can stay in overdrive. Lots of different things, being in a world that perhaps we weren't evolved or wasn't designed to be in. All the like stress all around us, trying to evaluate threats through Reddit and TV and all the screens, and just all the different things that we have going on that can lead to perhaps a hypersensitive fight or flight response. But what would cause our parasympathetic, that rest and digest system, people call it, what would cause that to be underperforming? Like, what would lead to that?
Well, some of the autoimmune conditions appear to, in some cases, so I think the science is not landed fully on it, but it does seem to affect the way that this system behaves. It becomes dampened down. Dampen might not be quite the right word, but less active and certainly less able to counter the sympathetic
Mm.
dominance that we get. And you're right, our bodies weren't designed. The human brains haven't had an upgrade for like 10,000 years, and they were designed for your stress system to come on maybe once a day, twice a day, and plenty of recovery time. So if you
Mhm.
combine that then with conditions like long COVID or where things like that have happened, you can just see you've got this really dysregulated autonomic
Mhm.
nervous system. So if we can get to the root of that, get that balance right, that's surely got to be worth um, looking at in a lot of detail to see if that can provide an effective way forward for people living with chronic condition, these types of chronic conditions.
So it sounds like one of the biggest ways that we can restore that balance is by strengthening that vagus nerve response.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's got to be an equal voice.
And how does one do that? How does one strengthen their vagus nerve?
Well, there
I'm
are some
picturing
really
someone at the gym doing some
yeah.
weird
Well,
exercises.
it is a training. It is a training, and clearly, if it's been
Yeah.
damaged or it's really, really not a player at all, that's a lot. That's a lot of training that's needed. But there is really
Yeah.
good evidence around the ability to strengthen it from a clinical trial perspective, looking at different studies in these sort of autoimmune conditions. And I'll tell you why in a little while why I think some of the results aren't always great yet, and what I think the opportunity is to improve that. But activating the vagus nerve can be done through simple things. The thing I use every day is using your breathing apparatus. So, using your respiratory apparatus to activate your vagus nerve is an absolute no cost, no brainer for anybody who wants to improve vagal nerve strength. And doing that through just using slower breathing with your diaphragm, it's a mechanical hack. You don't need to think about it, you don't need to visualize it, you just need to do some slow diaphragmatic breathing, around 6 breaths a minute. 4 breaths in, 6 breaths out. I guarantee you that will activate your vagal nerve. And I could tell you, I could measure it as well. I could measure it and give you some data that would show you how simple and effective that is as a tool.
I was doing it just as you were explaining it and already starting to feel a little bit better. I'm curious about the 4 breaths in and the 6 breaths out. So are you
Yeah.
holding?
I don't hold. I think I think it's about the reason you have a slightly longer exhalation is you activating the vagus nerve in your sinatral node in your heart
Mm.
in that exhale. And that's because your heart is slowing down as you're breathing in and speeding up as you're breathing out. So, what we're trying to do is to activate it on the out breath. So, having a slightly longer exhale just means that we're maximizing the activation of the vagus nerve from your heart. And that's to do with, yeah, and from that, we can then absolutely have confidence you're activating your vagus nerve.
And when we activate our vagus nerve, what does that mean for us?
That
What will
means
we notice?
what will you notice? If you do that just for 5 minutes, you will feel relaxed. um,
Yeah.
and if you want to measure it, so how do I know? Because I'm a bit of a science geek, so I like to be able to say, well,
Mm.
how do I know I have activated this nerve? I would measure your heart rate variability. So
Okay.
your heart rate variability is a very good measure of your strength of your vagus nerve and the balance, therefore, of these two nerve branches of your autonomic nervous system.
So we hear a lot about heart rate variability and I've had different devices that track it and I have a sense of what a good score is and a bad score is, but I really have no idea why that matters or I why does okay, if you could explain for us in simple terms what heart rate variability is and then what is an optimal heart rate variability and how that impacts us, why
Yes.
that matters.
So your heart rate variability is the interbeat intervals in your heartbeat. So your heart doesn't beat like a metronome. It's much more clever than that. So your heart speeds up as you breathe in, and it slows down as you breathe out. And so the distance between the beats in the in breath and the out breath are changing all the time. So what we want is a high heart rate variability, maximum difference in those interbeat intervals. So high heart rate variability is good. It declines with age. That's the bad news for people where I'm at in my life. So it's much more effort to maintain it because if you
Mhm.
have high heart rate variability, you've got better cardiac health as well. But the other really important thing is there's no magic you should be at this level. It's very personalized for you.
Mm.
So the thing to look at in heart rate variability is if you're tracking it over time, if you're wearing a 24/7 tracker, is just to see what your baseline is like and to think, could I optimize that? Could I, what would it look like? How would I feel if it was 20% higher, 50% higher? And for me, my goal is obviously to maintain it. Mine is a little bit low at the moment because I'm very stressed. Only on average around 40 to 45 milliseconds. But elite athletes or younger folk might have a heart rate variability of 80 to 100, but no one should feel like there's a benchmark here. It's all just about your own personal benchmark, but measuring it is a really good way of checking how how good your nervous system, how healthy is your autonomic nervous system.
I'm happy that you explained that personal benchmark piece of it because I think, like a lot of people, I started paying attention to it, which meant I was Googling, like, what should it be? What's the optimal? And mine was never in that zone. I'm like, no matter how
No,
hard I try, I can't have good heart rate variability. So I did sort of give up on that and just started looking like, okay, this is good for me, or this is not so good for me. Um, yeah. And it sounds like that's a more important metric than.
absolutely more important metric.
um,
Absolutely more important metric.
So, are there other things that impact our heart rate variability other than what things impact our heart rate and
Well, the
variability?
sad news is that having a drink in the evening, the next morning your heart rate variability will go down.
Yeah.
So that's doesn't put me off having a drink now and again, but alcohol
Yeah.
is one thing that does drop your heart rate variability. Any chronic condition may also reduce heart rate variability. Getting sick, actually, some of the
Okay.
first signs you might see that you're getting sick is you'll see a dip in your heart rate variability. A lot of stressful events, they also
Mm,
will impact your heart rate variability as well. So it can be a bit of a noisy signal because all these things
mhm.
will influence it. But it is a really good one to keep track on and to see how you can look at optimizing it. I guarantee you it's worth paying attention to.
How about coffee?
Yeah, love coffee. Coffee will increase your heart rate, and that's because it's activating as a stimulant. But
Okay.
I'm game for a coffee generally about 90 minutes after waking up.
Okay.
It'll help you carry you through the day.
Yeah. Like, please let me keep something.
Yeah, exactly,
Um,
exactly.
I know when we were chatting before this and you sent over some information and you mentioned something called respiratory sinus arrhythmia or
Yeah.
RSA. I've never heard of this. So what is this and why is it important to understand it? Or is it important?
This is a way of using, so the slow breathing that I mentioned, if you were just to do the slow breathing around 4 in, 6 out, what this
Hmm.
does is it mirrors then, so you've got this lovely slow sinusoidal breathing pattern, and at that rate, you can get your heart rate variability to be in sync. So you've got these two waves going together with breathing rate and heart rate variability. And that is called respiratory sinus arrhythmia. It's not an illness, it's not a bad thing. It's a magical effect about showing how we can use breathing to get in sync with some of our with our heart. And it's hugely healthy for us.
I had a little laugh there for a moment, not about what you were saying, but you were explaining the breathing again. And the first time you mentioned the 4 in, 6 out, and I'm sure people listening and watching were laughing like, "Oh, Raylan, I was picturing you inhale 4 times and exhale 6 times."
Ah,
I'm like, "That math doesn't add up."
sorry,
How does one
breathing in
do
for
that?
4 seconds, exhaling for 6 seconds. I should have.
I'm yeah. No, I was just saying, put show of hands in the comments if you understood it the first time. I bet you everybody did, and I
Four
know
and six
this, and
out.
I talk
Yeah.
about it, but yeah, sometimes I overthink things. Okay. Anyways, so I love this. So we've got the breathing, a simple thing that we can do to that can be calming and that can help with our vagus nerve.
Mhm.
Are there other things like this that we can do?
Yep.
Little hacks.
Little hacks, also cold water. Cold water activates the dive reflex, which is a natural reflex we have, which slows our heart rate down. And it's basically a survival tool if we were to fall into water, that we would conserve energy and quickly divert all of our energy to the vital areas in the body. I don't like cold showers. I just, can't do it. I don't like ice baths. Can't do that. But I do always wash my face in cold water. So
Okay.
simple, using cold water. can be also a very good way of activating your vagus nerve. Um, if you can, exercise is also, I mean, exercise is like a magic pill, but depending on how you are in the world, if you put the more exercise you can do, will always activate vagus nerve and also other sorts of really healthy mechanisms for the brain. So whatever you can do, even if it's a little, will make a difference.
Yeah. And it's nice to hear about the cold water, that it doesn't have to be a full ice bath to get benefits. And I love the idea or that you shared about splashing cold water on your face. And at first I thought that seems too simple. And then I thought about every movie I've ever seen where a person gets stressed out. Pretty much the first thing you do is go to the bathroom and put cold water on their face.
Yeah,
It's not like they suddenly have a desire to have a clean face. It's a calming effect on your
yeah.
body, which is incredible.
It also is very refreshing in the morning and much nicer than a
Yes.
cold shower.
Yes. Much, although I do those as well.
Oh, what
So
you
I
do?
know
Yeah. And do you enjoy the cold showers? Do you manage to?
some days some days I hate them and some days I enjoy them. Some
Mhm.
days I put on warm. I've been
Yeah.
doing it for probably 10 years and I can
Woo.
almost hear my body talk to me. Some
Yeah.
days where I put it on warm and it's like, "Nope, not today." And I put it on cold and it's like my body's singing. Like it's
Yeah.
exactly what it needs in that moment. So, yeah,
It's very
I do
powerful.
the Yeah, I've done lots of ice baths and things like that too. I don't love those I'm doing because I think I should, but, yeah, it gets easier. So what about, because I know we've got lots of neurotech devices that can help with these things as well, and I know that you're involved with, a new one coming out on the market called SONA.
Mhm.
So instead of me butchering trying to explain what it is, but like, what is the role of things like this for neuroplasticity or nervous system regulation and all of that?
So we're building a Sona to solve this problem of how can we make it super easy to activate this nerve, the vagus nerve. How can we really personalize it for you wherever you're at in the world, whatever conditions you're living with or whatever experiences you have? Because if we can do that and optimize the way we can activate this nerve, we can help this autonomic nervous system balance and get that right for you.
Mhm.
Also, we can help the brain to open to learn new things. And we've just it's sort of just looking at our aha moment we've had in the journey I've had is discovering this role of neuroplasticity and how the brain's constantly open to rewiring if you're sending it the right signals. So it's early days, I think, for how, for the role of non invasive, so things that are outside the body to be able to activate and change brain networks. But that's our goal. Can we heal unhealthy brain networks, which you get in a lot of conditions? So tinnitus, chronic pain, depression, they're all essentially brain network problems. And so I'm excited about the potential for us to be able to help get some of those networks back into a healthy, optimized operating system again.
Yes, and I think Sona is available for order, but it's coming out in January. Is that correct?
Yeah, we've sold out. We're taking pre-orders now for the end of January or middle of January. Fingers crossed.
Okay.
First little batch has already pre-sold, which is super exciting.
Oh, that is
Um,
exciting.
yeah, and looking forward to getting on the ears of as many people who want to try and experiment and be curious about how they can use it to meet their goals, to help resolve challenges that they've got in their life, or optimize or reduce symptoms. So it's been a labor of love for 5 years, and
Oh.
excited to bring it to the world. On a mission to see how it can help people bring their best to life.
Yeah, I mean, people who have been watching this channel for a while know that I'm a big fan of these sorts of things. I'm often seen with wearing them, having them strapped to my
Nice.
body. I've done
Yeah.
videos around different things. So, what specifically does Sona do? What is this for?
So Sona
How
sits
does it
on
work?
sits on your ear, around your ear, and it's stimulating the vagus nerve through the auricular branch.
Okay.
So we have this bit of pipe work that goes from the ear,
Okay.
follows along the bottom of the brain canal, and straight into the brain. So that's our way of, in a really nice, super easy way for people. You just put her on your ear, turn on. And then she will Sona. I call Sona a she. I've got into trouble a little bit, but it's because she's built with a mother's love. Honestly, this is built with a mother's love. And then it's about personalizing it for you. And I think that's where this is such an interesting area as we learn more about how these devices can activate different things in the brain and personalize it. There's just a massive, super interesting space to learn about how we can then use them for treating all sorts of conditions. So we're at the beginning of a lovely voyage.
I'm very excited to have you in front of me because I've had questions about devices like this, and people ask me about them, and I don't know. And I know there are other vagus nerve
Yeah.
stimulator type devices out
Yeah.
there on the market. So, like, one of the general questions I have about them is, how do you know if it's doing anything? Like, how do you know if it's helping? Do you put it on and just, I know there's a lot of science to back it,
Yeah.
so I believe in it, but when you're using it, how can you tell if it's having an impact?
Because we measure heart rate variability in real time. We have a little sensor on the back,
Oh,
which sits on the mastoid bone, that sort of hard bit just behind your ear. So we've got a little
okay.
CPG sensor, the same that you have in your Apple Watches, your Garmin, same little sort of sensor. So what we're doing is we're measuring that in real time as we're stimulating. So it allows us to see what the response is to the stimulation and then learn from that and optimize it. So for me, that was super important. Again, being a bit data-y.
Yeah.
Sometimes, and I see when I put Sona on that I get immediate lovely uplift in my heart rate variability. So then I'm thinking, yeah, this is doing what it should.
Yeah. I think that's really important because
Yeah.
in for many reasons, even just to get myself to continue using it. Because if I'm using something and I don't have anything visible telling me that it's doing
Yeah,
anything, kind of like, am I just imagining? I think maybe it is, but I don't know for sure.
yeah.
So having that data to show you in real time is
Sometimes
is is very cool.
it is for me really important, and we also see improvements in sleep metrics for people who are wearing wearables as well. And we're just about to start a study in chronic pain just to build some more clinical evidence around, and that'll be obviously measuring symptoms and how that changes. But excited about that as that down the track. Obviously, it'll take us a little while to be cleared for as a medical device, but there's lots of potential.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I'm all like, and how does something like Sona compare to other methods of strengthening the vagus nerve, like the breathing that you talked about or the cold water? Is it having a similar effect?
It
Is
will
one
be.
better than the other?
So we're going straight into the brain, and they're very precise. So it's going to be powerful. But we always talk about combining all of these things. Maybe not the
Okay.
cold water and the stimulation at the same time, but the breathing. We've built a breathing pacer into the app because you want to maximize the signals that you're sending to the brain. So the more time the brain hears a message about calm down, or then the more likely it is to respond. So we pair stimulation with meditation, with breath
Okay.
work. You can, in clinically, it's been used pairing it with people who've sadly suffer from a stroke, and it's been paired with physiotherapy. So what they're seeing, can they speed up the rate the brain learns how to learns movement again?
Okay.
So it's all about, yeah, for me, it's about building routines, building opportunities to bring in different sensory inputs as well to maximize how Sona works.
So it sounds like because a lot of the people who listen and watch this channel are doing brain retraining programs to help with their recovery.
Mhm.
So it sounds like potentially using this while doing those types of
A
activities,
learning task.
yeah, could help with that
Yeah.
neuroplasticity component of it, potentially.
We don't have the clinical evidence and we aren't making any clinical claims about this
Right.
at the moment. So I just want to be
Right.
really clear.
Yeah.
That's a separate path. But certainly there's really good clinical evidence around already that it is something, for learning new tasks while you're stimulating. So
Okay.
would be encouraging people to do a little bit of experiment about what, does it work when they're pairing with a learning task?
And does it help? I'm just so excited to have someone who knows so much about this because I get so many questions. Could it help? Like I interviewed a woman, and in her experience, it did. She was using not this, but
Yeah.
something, some sort of vagus nerve stimulator, and she would use it strategically when she was going to go into an environment that she found stressful. So,
Yeah.
like when she went to the grocery store, she would put it on, and then it would help her to be
Mm.
calmer. So, is that
Yeah.
a typical way to use it,
Yeah.
or a way that you can use it?
Can be used on demand. My usage is to help me with sleep, um,
Okay.
and that's probably stage of life as well. So mine is a sleep ritual. So it's 10 minutes, 10 minute session prior to sleep, and I do that just to try and down regulate my sympathetic nervous system,
Right.
so that I can get to sleep and stay asleep. And that
Okay.
works a treat.
So, once you're using something like this, is this something you use for life, or are you building up your system to be in a more regulated state so eventually it won't need this sort of stimulation?
Yeah, I mean that is obviously a goal. So it's like training anything. You're always 4 to 6 weeks is a really great way to start, and then it's like, do
Okay.
I need to top up, or does another life event happen, or does something else, pull me back?
Right.
Because life has a habit of doing that. It's never quite flat, but certainly you should be able to see a really nice effect within. But it is a training tool. I see an effect straight away as soon as I start a session, but I've always had to keep doing it to keep building up because life keeps throwing curveballs, doesn't it?
It
It's
does. Yes. And I'm all about these things and these hacks, and anything that, I mean, recovery from these conditions is so challenging. It's often
yeah.
simple things that get you there, but it's not easy. So if there's anything that can speed that up, but then there's a part of me that feels like is this like cheating? Like this feels too
Mm,
easy.
mm.
Like I have to be doing the hard work. I have to be in the tub of ice. I can't just clip something on my ear. But yeah, I don't know what my point is with that comment.
Well, I think it's all of these rituals, isn't it? It's about
Yeah.
how do I build these rituals into my world
Yeah.
that help me improve my health or
Yeah.
whatever the goals it is that I'm trying to aim for. And they are rituals at the end of the day, and they're all valuable.
Yeah. I think it's like you said, it is in conjunction with a lot of other things. I think a lot of us want, a magic pill or something that we just don't have to do any work and then everything falls into place. But we can use things like Sona while also doing our breath work and maybe seeing a therapist
Mhm.
and,
Absolutely.
doing
Use
our
some
deeper
before you
work
see your
and
therapist. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Depending on your therapist, maybe wear it while you're there. Probably not the right therapist, or maybe exactly the right therapist. Okay, yeah. So yeah, I do see a lot of potential there. I'm sure you've done comparisons against some of the other vagus nerve stimulators that are out there. How is Sona different from what's out there?
It's about personalizing it for you,
Okay.
by taking real time data and being able to personalize the stimulation that you receive, um, in a really nice, easy to wear form factor. Put over your ear, pop on, no box, no wires, and she'll learn with you. Um, it's like a long term companion.
So, bringing this back to recovery from conditions like ME/CFS and long COVID, from the research that you're doing, your colleagues, the people you're working with, the spaces you're in, is there a feeling of like more research happening of, these types of devices being able to help with that, more research around that specifically? Is anyone talking about it at all?
Yeah. I think
Please
there's a
tell me they're talking about it.
yeah, they absolutely are. I see because I track all of the research happening around in this area, the role of the vagus nerve in being able to support um,
Yeah.
autoimmune diseases and conditions. I think there's a lot of discoveries that have been made. I think the clinical evidence is still a little bit on the fence, and I think that's because there's been nothing out there that's been able to really personalize how you stimulate, when you stimulate,
Yeah.
what you pair stimulation with. So I'm super excited about the future of being able to have a much more precise way of activating this nerve that is responding then to where you're at and the condition that you're living with. and being able to really, really have a step change in how we can alleviate symptoms. So I'm
Yeah.
super excited about the journey that we can go on.
That is great to hear. I am excited as well. And if anyone is interested in checking out Sona, we'll put the link in the video description since it is available for pre order. And I know that Jane has, as a gift for you guys, is providing a discount if you order through that link. So thank you so much for that. And lots more information there about the product if there people are interested. This has been fascinating. I so appreciate you being here and the work that you're doing. This is needed so much. Just a massive thank you, for myself and on behalf of the people facing all of these chronic symptom conditions that are trying to find their way out of it. I really appreciate the work that you're doing. So thank you for being here and speaking with us.
Absolute pleasure. The future is bright.
For people who found this helpful, I'm going to link a playlist here. It's another list of, or it's a list of experts who've been on the channel, just like Jane. So even if you can't make your way to a specific researcher's or doctor's office, we've got a lot of them here on the channel sharing all of this great information for free. So thank you. Thank you, Jane, for being here. And thank you to
Having
all
me.
of you watching. And I hope to see you in one of these next videos here.